after the seminar, we're going to do the 20% off, and if we run out of any products, you can do a special order and leave a deposit, and then you still get the 20% off when it comes in. So with that, Shane?
Awesome, good, thank you. Wow. It is a room full. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you guys for being here.
Real loud so we can hear you.
I will warm up to it. So yeah, thank you guys for being here. I really appreciate it. My name is Shane, and before I get started, I do just want to give a major thanks to Peggy and everybody else that's here, that's working, that's making this happen. You guys are obviously interested in fish oil. That's why we're here, right? Just making sure anybody is here for fish oil. That's not the seminar. So you've heard about CBD. Who doesn't know what CBD is? Who just came here because someone dragged them? Okay, that's cool. So there are a lot of layers to this topic, and I will attempt to address many of them. I know a lot of you came here with specific questions on your mind, and as you can tell, there are a lot of people. We're not going to have time to get to everybody's specific questions. However, I want to make sure that you guys know. I'm going to say it now, I'll say it later, and I'll probably say it again at the end, because it's, to me, the most important thing that I'm going to say is that you have my contact information, and if you don't, there's a lot more up here, and we'll make sure that you can get them before you leave. My number, my phone number, and my email, all those things, whatever works best for you. Text me if you want to, but please reach out to me. If I don't cover what you came to hear, or if you have other questions, this is about networking. This is about connecting and educating. And believe it or not, you guys have as much to offer by way of education as I do to you. Everything that I've learned about this oil in the last 5 years in working with people has been from working with people. So I value your feedback very, very much. I'm going to try to start at the beginning, if there is such a thing. The beginning really has to do with understanding this, the endocannabinoid system. If you guys can't see this, it's also on the brochures and so forth. This word is unfamiliar maybe to some of you. The endocannabinoid system. Everybody try to say it with me. Endocannabinoid system. Bad, you didn't rehearse it. That was pretty good. This is an important term in understanding this stuff, the CBD. CBD stands for cannabidiol. Cannabidiol is a cannabinoid. I know this starts getting a little funny when I start saying all these weird words, but it comes from the cannabis plant. That's where this terminology is coming from. Cannabinoids are really important. So when you start to understand this from the right perspective, you understand that these cannabinoids are actually nutrients that our body is looking for. In other words, we have receptors in our bodies that are looking for cannabinoids. We make these cannabinoids naturally in our bodies, and we refer to them as endogenous or endocannabinoids. The endocannabinoids in our body are very, very, very important. And the simplest way for me to help you to understand how important they are is to understand that the most abundant source of these natural endogenous cannabinoids is in mother's milk. Oh, bless you. In mother's milk is where you'll find them. And so what we're doing here is supporting a system, an endocannabinoid system. And this system is responsible for maintaining homeostasis in our bodies. I'll just give you a second. Thank you. So, we make cannabinoids in our bodies, but we can become deficient in the natural production of these cannabinoids. I like to have these little sheets. They keep me on track. So I'm going to find the one that's going to keep me on track. Here it is. All right, clinical endocannabinoid deficiency. This is being linked to all sorts of different things. This is a small list here, but ultimately what happens is we become deficient in our natural production of cannabinoids, and that system that maintains balance and homeostasis in our body starts to malfunction, starts to break down. This is a pretty cool thing because it actually illustrates a lot of the things that the endocannabinoid system regulates. But in a nutshell, it's all the things that keep us in balance. It's all of the self-regulatory functions of the body. The need to eat, the need to sleep, the need to go to the bathroom. These are all very, very, very critical functions of our bodies. And if we go back to mother's milk and baby, we can see this very clearly because baby has 3 jobs. That's it, right? Eat, sleep, and go to the bathroom. That's all baby has to do. Well, we were baby once, and that was all we had to do. And then we got a little older and we had responsibilities thrust upon us, and our priorities started to shift. And before you know it, we're waking up with just enough time to make the coffee and get out the door. No time for pooping. You joke, I know, it's funny, but it's also serious. Because the more of these other responsibilities that we take on, the less we prioritize the most important 3. Eat, sleep, go to the bathroom. We take medications and even supplements for things to help us balance eating, sleeping, and going to the bathroom. These are the 3 most important things that we need to maintain. So I'm going to ask you guys a question. Because I've learned that if I ask the question before I tell it to you, you'll remember it better. And this is an important one. What do you think is the most important thing for you to be able to eat and sleep and go to the bathroom? Any ideas?
Less stress.
Who said less stress? Okay, you're hitting it. Less stress. But in a word, how about this? Relaxation. The most important thing that I have ever learned in working with this oil is that when the body is not relaxed, the body does not heal. However, the good news is when the body is relaxed, the body does heal naturally, on its own. It's what it's designed to do. We just have to give it the right raw material. So this is where cannabinoids come in. You see, we make these cannabinoids as babies. We get a lot from mom, and we make them naturally in our bodies as we get older. But there are 2 major things, I believe, that contribute to our body's ability, or inability rather, to produce these cannabinoids in the abundance that we need them. So if we understand that the cannabinoids and this endocannabinoid system's job is to maintain balance and homeostasis in the body, then what do you think is going to make that system work harder? Things that throw us out of balance, right? The 2 main culprits are stress and toxicity. Toxins and stress. Stress and toxins. With these 2 things in mind, it's easy to understand why we are deficient in cannabinoids. We all have this little guy, right?
Yeah.
This is toxins, and this is stress, no doubt. We can't keep up with ourselves. So I believe very strongly that part of the reason why we are experiencing this deficiency in these cannabinoids has to do with the abundance of stress and the abundance of toxicity in the environments that we live in. We reach a threshold, and then we are diagnosed with something. And that something usually gets worse when we are stressed out. We all know this connection. And we all do a lot of things to try to maintain this, homeostasis. But if there's a specific nutrient that we're missing, then you can drink all the kava in the world, but you're not going to really be able to find your balance and bring your body back to relaxation naturally. You know, for example, we talk about sleep, right? I'm skipping ahead a little bit here, but whatever. People use CBD for sleep a lot. And it's critical to understand that CBD is not a sedative. Now, other cannabinoids like THC is a sedative, right? So there are over 100 cannabinoids in the cannabis plant. CBD is only one of them. THC is another, and then there's CBC and CBG and CBN and, you know, a whole bunch of them. And guess what? They all have benefit because they all support this endocannabinoid system. So that's the starting point. Don't let people confuse you about the difference between this and medical marijuana. It's a joke, man. It's marketing. I'm sorry, but the reality is this. The reality is that about 5-6 years ago when we started doing this and other companies started to come out with CBD products, they were acting like it was the end all. We finally found the magic thing in this plant that's medicinal. And anybody that wants that THC stuff, well, they just want to get high. Okay, that's nonsense, frankly. But this is how people market things. And so they marketed it this way, and then you had folks who were fighting for whole plant legalization their whole lives going, what? Really? CBD, huh? Okay, cool, man. But, you know, if you're really sick, like if you got the big C, man, you need the real deal. That's also nonsense. All cannabinoids have support. They all have benefit. And you can do your own research and you can understand that in the case of cancer, all cannabinoids have benefit. But the combination of cannabinoids, if you were in a state that had their act together and had dispensaries ready and available for you, we're getting there, we're close. But what you would already know about is how you combine the different cannabinoids to find the right level of things that work for you. CBD can actually mitigate some of the psychoactive effects of THC. That's one of the reasons people combine it. But really, it's a synergistic effect. So what you're really looking for when you're looking for cannabinoid support, everybody say it with me, cannabinoid support. Well, you guys are on it. That term means a lot to me. It's an important term. Because when we start going THC versus CBD, and pretty soon it's versus CBG and everything else, and everybody's confused, and it's Shane, which one is the one for me? I don't know. It doesn't really matter. In my humble opinion, it doesn't really matter. Just support the system. But Shane, I don't understand why I really need to support that system. I mean, my body, it makes cannabinoids. You just told me that. And I'm not that stressed out. And I live a clean life. So I should have natural abundance of cannabinoids. I don't want to have to take something that my body's supposed to be able to make. What if it makes less? That's a real concern. And I understand that concern. Fortunately, the evidence is there that when you start to wake that system up, you start a cascade effect in which now your body is producing cannabinoids as it should have been. These receptor sites are tired. They haven't had a chance to really be active. And so they're weak and tired. And when we stimulate them, we start to produce our own natural production of cannabinoids again. But to fully understand this, you've got to go back in time. You've got to go back to prior to the illegalization of hemp in this country. Right? You guys know it's kind of illegal to grow hemp here, right? It's not totally illegal. State hemp legislation in 34 states. What is it? Over 25,000 acres of hemp are grown in 2017. So we are able to grow hemp, but only recently and only under direct contract with the federal government. So what happened? Right? Well, it's actually both. It's the agriculture, State Department of Agriculture, and then with the federal government as well. So what you're looking at here is a reintroduction of hemp into our farming. But it was taken away. And it's really critical to understand the bigger picture of this, is to understand, kind of how it was taken away. Because I don't want to get into the whole conspiracy of this and that and everybody involved. That's a whole nother discussion. But it is important to understand. Okay, no worries. It is important to understand that if we had hemp growing still today the way that we used to, we likely wouldn't have these deficiencies. Because the way we used to grow hemp is the way we grow corn today. And these cannabinoids that I've been talking about are fat soluble. They're lipids. They carried over into the dairy. They carried over into the meat and into the eggs. The hemp was fed to the livestock. We had hemp in our diet. We had these cannabinoids in our diet. And what's really interesting is you can go back in time in just about any culture on the planet. And you can go back about as far as you can go in history, in historical record. And you'll find that they too were growing hemp and using it this way. And you look back prior to the 1930s at the over-the-counter medications we had available to us, and easily over 50% had some hemp derivative in them, had cannabinoids in them. We had cannabinoids in our diet. We had cannabinoids in our medicine. And then we didn't have cannabinoids. And now we have clinical endocannabinoid deficiency. Rocket science, right?
Yeah.
So how do you support that system? Well, ideally you grow the cannabis plant and then you juice it. And frankly, if you juice the cannabis plant, there is no psychoactive component. You may not understand this, but the reason that people make the brownies and they do all this stuff with the plant is because you got to heat it up. You got to heat up the THC to make it, to make it psychoactive. We'll just leave it at that for now. So the bottom line is that if you were to juice this plant, you would be getting the benefit of all these cannabinoids, supporting the system properly. This is the ideal way, in my opinion. And we don't have that way here yet. However, we do have things like these. These are tinctures of, well, I say tinctures, but it's not alcohol. It's in an oil base. It's a hemp seed oil, this particular one. It's the TrueCBD, and this is a product that's 100% hemp. So I don't want to get too much into the product at this moment, but it's important to distinguish that when you're supporting the endocannabinoid system, it doesn't matter how. It's just important that you're supporting the endocannabinoid system. The number one benefit to supporting this system is bringing the nervous system back to the parasympathetic, getting us out of that chronic fight or flight scenario that we can get stuck into. This is bringing us back to relaxation in the most natural way possible. I started talking about sleep, and I'm going to get back into that now, because CBD is not a sedative, but people use it to help them sleep. Sometimes the same people who use it to help them sleep use it during the day to help them to focus. And that's sort of counterintuitive. But when you understand the benefit of using CBD is naturally bringing the body to that place of relaxation without sedation, then you understand why it's able to help somebody sleep and it's able to help them to focus. Because the reason they can't sleep is essentially the same as the reason that they can't focus. They can't relax. When the body is relaxed and the mind is relaxed, then we are able to do what we want to do. If we're not relaxed, we don't want to eat, we can't sleep, and good luck going to the bathroom. These are the three basic functions, and they require relaxation. And that right there is why I believe so many people get so much benefit by supporting the endocannabinoid system. Because we're not taking a drug or a medication or even a, how do you put this? Well, let me put it to you this way. A lot of times, people will use CBD for pain, right? And CBD is awesome for pain. I was hit by a car just over a year ago. I was in a lot of pain. I had a lot of injuries. CBD helped me immensely. However, that said, there are different types of pain. And particular types of pain, I believe very strongly, can be corrected, can be turned around. We can rebuild what has been damaged. Sometimes we're given this diagnosis, for example, of arthritis, and we're just done. We have arthritis now. We love labels, don't we? We just love labels. From the shelves to the people, everything is a label. And we like to label ourselves too. So now, bang, my label is I have rheumatoid arthritis. That's me, I know that's what I have. But I don't believe that way. I don't think that way. I choose to believe the body can heal itself. And so when given a diagnosis like that, I believe there's it's kind of like a two-pronged approach. The first one is get out of pain. That's important, and CBD can help a lot with that. But CBD is not the nutrients, the raw material that the body needs necessarily to rebuild that. It's a part of it. But there are other things involved. There are things like collagen and vitamin C and very important nutrients that we want to focus on. And so what I'm getting at here is that sometimes we can use things to mask a problem and allow it to get worse. We do the same thing with any kind of when I talk about vitamin C, for example. I know you guys didn't come to hear about vitamin C. Tough. You're going to hear a little bit about vitamin C. Because, see, we don't make vitamin C. It's an essential nutrient. Most mammals make their own vitamin C. And most mammals live to be 7 to 10 times their maturity rate. The mammals that don't make their own vitamin C don't live that long. Think guinea pigs. That's why they're guinea pigs. So what's important to get out of this is that with something like vitamin C, you have to make sure you're getting it every day as a nutrient that you're missing. It's not like taking a drug. It's not like taking a medication. It's not even taking a supplement that's just masking something. People take, for example, turmeric for inflammation. I like to pick on turmeric for inflammation. I mean, I love turmeric, and it's great for inflammation. But inflammation is not a turmeric deficiency. It never was. Inflammation is often a hydration deficiency and a vitamin C deficiency. Did you know that the first sign of vitamin C deficiency is not scurvy? That's the last sign. The first sign is inflammation of the joints. You know where I got that from, by the way? A little trivia card. Survival game. And I learned it, and I looked it up. Sure enough, it's true. But you don't know that. I didn't know that. Nobody knows that. But it's true. If you look it up, it's true. But we go to turmeric first. Why? Are we masking a situation and allowing it to get worse? Why do we have the inflammation? Is it because we have a vitamin C deficiency and a hydration deficiency? Maybe we should start there. So it's the same with CBD. If we're using CBD for pain, we want to make sure that we're also addressing why are we in pain. The one thing that I have found though with CBD and pain in particular is it breaks that vicious cycle. And if you guys are in chronic pain, then I know you know what I mean. It's that cycle of pain causes stress, stress causes more pain causes more stress and anxiety, which causes even more pain, and it's this vicious cycle. And when you can break that cycle, it can help tremendously to get out of the pain. And so CBD works on several levels, and it's also addressing the anxiety and the stress that comes with that. And so it's very helpful on that level. With regard to using CBD for pain, it's also very helpful to use it topically. You don't necessarily need a specific topical product. The oil can be used sublingually, under the tongue, or topically, a few drops, massaged anywhere on the skin. This oil can be used for animals, and a lot of people, especially with the 4th of July right around the corner, are very interested in getting CBD for their pets to help them to calm down in a very natural way. There's so many things that people use this for and find benefit with it. But again, I want to bring you guys back to supporting the endocannabinoid system, and in doing so, allowing the body to find that place of relaxation so that the body can do what the body's trying to do and heal itself, or so that you can do what you're trying to do and go to the bathroom or go to sleep or whatever it might be. This is not a magic snake oil cure-all. This is an essential nutrient that we didn't really know we needed. The endocannabinoid system wasn't discovered until 1992. Think about that. It's now being touted as one of the most important systems in our body. And we didn't even know it existed. When I was in college in physiological psychology, the big question that we were asked was, this THC, why are there receptors in the brain that it's binding with? It doesn't make any sense. We didn't even know we made cannabinoids in our bodies yet. Once we figured that out, we went, oh, well, no wonder we have receptors. We make these things. But there are two types of nutrients. There are essential nutrients and non-essential nutrients. You guys may have heard of this through proteins and amino acids. You have your essential and non-essential amino acids. Who knows the difference? The difference is the essential ones are the ones that your body doesn't make. In other words, it's essential that you get them from somewhere, right? I would argue that cannabinoids are an essential nutrient. And yes, our body does make them, but doesn't make them enough, especially in the environment that we've created for ourselves. And in particular, when our system is out of whack, when it needs supporting, when we can't find balance, when we can't find homeostasis, when we can't fall asleep. I mean, the reason that the FDA is trying to take this off the market, the reason that it was kind of hidden for as long as humanly possible, is because, well, yeah, the pharmaceuticals that people take, they wouldn't really need if they had. Here's my analogy, okay? Anybody who knows who Linus Pauling is? Okay. Vitamin C, right? Thank goodness. Thank goodness. Because if the drug companies had discovered vitamin C first, I want you to understand this now. Think hard. Scurvy would be an incurable disease, but they'd have lots of drugs to treat it.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
So you're saying that the FDA is coming after CBD?
Oh, well, they've been doing it forever.
Because, excuse me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Because Big Pharma is threatened by it. The way I understood the FDA is coming after CBD oil is to prevent all the copycats that are truly promoting, quote, a snake oil versus the true product.
Well, to be fair, up to present, the FDA has only specifically targeted companies that you just called out. Yes, fraudulent companies making ridiculous claims, and they don't even have any CBD in the product to begin with. And there are a ridiculous amount of these out there. But there are. The FDA is poised to actually approve the first cannabis drug by GW Pharmaceuticals next month. It's a big deal because it's something that if they do approve, they then have one more little thing that they can use to try to enforce the laws of you can't sell CBD. I don't believe it's going to happen. I don't. But that's the fear. And the fear mongering is horrible at this point with it, to the extent to which it's not just about CBD oils. This is about medical marijuana in the states where it's legal. This is about parents who are afraid they're no longer going to be able to treat their children, and because once this GW Pharmaceuticals thing is approved, then on a federal level, they're going to come in and shut these states down because it's no longer going to be acceptable to have this on the market when there is a pharmaceutical drug on the market from the same plant. Yeah, You want to talk about a revolution? Get ready, because I don't think these parents are going to stand back and let it happen. And I don't think and the reality is that's why I don't believe it will happen. I think there's a tremendous amount of pressure on the FDA by the pharmaceutical companies to try to prevent this as much as possible. And I'm glad that this came up. It's not part of what most of you probably want to hear about, but it's actually probably most of what you're going to be hearing about in the next couple of weeks and months. I literally just yesterday heard it on NPR on the radio, how they're, concerned in states where medical marijuana is legal. And I don't want to attempt to, make it sound like these are two separate things. CBD and medical marijuana, while I can see how they would appear as two separate things, are not. Remember that term that we said together, cannabinoid therapy. Come on, say it one more time with me, it feels so good. Cannabinoid therapy. It doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter which one. It doesn't matter which cannabinoid. There are a few things that I told myself that I wanted to make sure that I shared with you guys tonight, because I've been doing this for about 5 years, and I have a lot of different tears and rambles and things that I can go on, but there's certain things that I think are really, really important. One of those things is, as a consumer of CBD products, we briefly brought this up, that there's a lot of junk out there, frankly, on the market. I got an email yesterday, and I followed up on it just to see what it was about, and it was a multi-level kind of thing where they're selling CBD products, and they've already sent me 5 emails on this. I'm like, oh my gosh, what did I get myself into, But I asked them the one question that I ask everybody. What third-party lab do you test with, and can I see some lab work to validate that your products actually have CBD in them, that the THC is below the legal threshold, so I'm not going to have any false positives on drug tests. And yes, that's a big question. No false positives on drug tests. That's why we test every batch, to ensure no false positives on drug tests. Okay, just want to make sure. So lab work is really what I want to get across to you. You guys remember the movie Show Me the Money? It's show me the lab work. This is critical. There is no regulation. Nobody is regulating this industry and making sure that CBD products have what they're supposed to have. The only way to know is to demand it. And I whenever I say this, I'm laughing inside right now. Because what I'm about to tell you guys may or may not, we'll see. This is the lab work, an example of what it kind of looks like. There's actually 6 pages of it. Testing for all sorts of different potential contaminants, as well as the cannabinoid profile and the terpene profile, etc. And I'm waving these things in front of you, right? This lab work, and so now you all are hypnotized.
But hopefully it's on your website.
Well, no, it isn't, because I've actually found it in on other websites once it was on ours. So, and the thing is, we test every batch, and it's kind of a pain in the butt to update that constantly. However,
there a hyperlink to that lab from your website?
Here's what it is. Email me, and you'll have a copy in seconds. We are working on the lab that we work with, Proverde Labs, is actually, they have the ability to put these QR scan deals where they will eventually be on our labels, so you can scan the thing, and then you'll have the lab work immediately. We're also working on, what we're going to have on the actual label is, for a copy of your lab work, if you don't have the QR thing, just email info at the website email address, and then you can get a copy. And I highly recommend, that you all do that. So the reason that I kind of laugh a little is because anybody can come in here and present to you about CBD and hypnotize you, and tell you you must do this, but did they really do it? How do you guys know? So what I encourage you to do is get the lab work. Actually get it, so you can see what it looks like. And then if you have a question about it, call me.
What do we look for?
Well, there's several things to look for, but the most important thing, I think, I don't know what the most important thing that the CBD is in there, or that the contaminants aren't? I guess that the contaminants aren't. Okay, so there's like 4 pages of that and a whole bunch of different contaminants. The first page is the cannabinoid profile. It shows you the amount of CBD that's in there, the amount of THC, and the presence of other cannabinoids which basically shows, this is a terpene profile. Terpenes are other molecules in there as well that have a synergistic effect. And this is representing a full spectrum product as opposed to a CBD isolate. I'm not a fan of isolates in general. Isolates being that you isolate, say, ascorbic acid from corn and call it vitamin C. I like to get vitamin C from food sources, and that's not an isolate. So with regard to CBD, you have two choices. You have isolates, or you can get a full spectrum. I guess the third choice would be growing your own plant, but again, we're not doing that here. So those are the two choices that you have.
Yeah, you don't think.
So I just want to kind of say it one more time. Demand lab work. It's very important. Whether you're a consumer of the CBD products or whether you're looking to get involved in CBD, because a lot of times people get very excited about it because they recognize the healing capacity and they want to get involved, and then they get an email and it's like, great business opportunity, woo! You know what to ask for. You want to make sure that you are in good company, that you're working with a company that knows what they have. Because if they're not doing the lab work, they don't even know what they have.
You're not doing the lab work, it's just snake oil.
Well, if they're not doing the lab work, first of all, their product's going to be less expensive. Because one of the biggest costs of putting this product on the market is ensuring the quality. And so when we say we test every batch, that's a full test of every batch. And they're relatively small batches. And so ultimately, when you find a product, if they're not testing, they don't really know the level of CBD that's in there. They don't really know the potential of contaminants. And one of the things that makes it extra important is when you move away from CO2 extraction. So I'm going to just very briefly talk about that because we actually have 4 different products and it's kind of confusing. So I just want to make it kind of clear for you guys. I know you're going to end up, probably some of you, on the website. And when you get on the website, there's 4 options. There's a 250 milligram and a 1500 milligram. Those 2 bottles are imported. 5 years ago, we started with the imported bottles. Now, we offer Kentucky oil. That would be the 350 milligram and the 2200 milligram. Those are the 2 bottles I suggest you focus on. I believe very strongly they are superior oil for a better price.
That's what Peggy has here.
Well, she has all 4.
Oh,
She's looking out. See, the thing is that when we started out, Peggy, of course, had them, and there's still some demand for the imported oil. One of the reasons for that is a CO2 extracted oil. And if you go online and you do your homework, you will learn that if you're buying CBD oil, you probably want to get it CO2 extracted. Now, that's not bad advice, but it's not complete advice either. Because the reality is CO2 extracted is safe, bet, because it's going to be clean. However, it doesn't always pull everything from the plant that we really want to pull. Particularly these terpenes that I mentioned earlier, which have tremendous synergistic benefit. What we do with the Kentucky oil is actually an organic ethanol extraction. And a lot of people have sort of a knee-jerk response to that, which is, whoa, wait, ethanol? No, I read that's no good. Yeah. If you do it incorrectly, it's no good. Incorrectly meaning you have residual ethanol in the product. No one wants that. However, when done correctly, and the ethanol amounts are, 0.000 parts per million, whatever, you're pulling more out of the plant. You're getting a more full spectrum oil. So ultimately, you have 2 choices. You have the safe bet, the CO2, but you might not have as potent, so to speak, or as full spectrum of an oil. Or you could go an ethanol extraction route and just make sure that you're getting the lab work done to know that there's no residual in there. Besides, you taste it. Gross. It's a very clean way to do it when done properly. And so we do still offer the CO2 extraction, which is the imported oil, but it took the Kentucky guys over a year to convince us that the CO2 extraction was not the best. And frankly, they were right. These guys are fifth generation hemp farmers that we work with in Kentucky.
Is that why Kentucky seems to be so popular?
Maybe.
I mean, I'm hearing all about Kentucky from people in Michigan and Chicago and.
Kentucky Fried Chicken.
I think you might be confusing that with the.
No,
Horse racing.
And lots of other reasons, too.
Yeah.
no.
Well, I can tell you that Kentucky, when we grew hemp back in the day, we grew more in Kentucky than anywhere else in the country. So they got the right soil for it, they got the right genetics for it, they got the right heritage for it, and I'll tell you what, these guys know what they're doing. We have suppliers contacting us all the time from all over the country, especially, Washington, Colorado, California. But the thing is like, when you test it, the THC is too high. And you realize that it's not really hemp, so to speak. I mean, it's all cannabis. I don't really like making these distinctions, but they can kind of be protected behind their state. Whereas Kentucky, not a legal state. So they got to do everything 100% by the book. And that's how they're doing it. And we like that. So anyway, I just have to review really quickly and make sure I didn't forget to tell you guys any of the most important stuff. Relaxation, endocannabinoid system, demand lab work, the endocannabinoid system. Let's just say that again. No, and here's the reason I really focus on that. When people ask you about CBD, and they will, the simplest way to help them to understand it, and also the simplest way to break through the stigma, frankly, is to come at it like this. We're talking about a deficiency of a nutrient that our body needs. Does it really, could it be any simpler than that? Really? And when we understand it from that perspective, doesn't it all just fall into place? It makes perfect sense. You don't have to understand the difference between marijuana and hemp and cannabis and all these terms, and everybody's trying to sell you a different product and make sure you get your card and all this stuff. Listen, you can get your card, that's fine. That's probably, if you're ill and you need THC, that's great. Get your card and get that. But recognize that what we're doing is cannabinoid support. And ultimately, in supporting this endocannabinoid system, we're allowing our body the ability to relax. And keep in mind I said allowing. CBD doesn't force you to relax. It allows you to relax. The difference being is that you still have to do part of the work. You still have to breathe. If CBD were a teacher, its lesson to you would be breathe. And this is how. That's what it's doing for you. It's bringing you back to that place where you can take a deep breath. There you go. I know. Hey, come on. I know you guys are dying to do it. It's okay. You can. There you go. One more. Everybody together. Some of you will hate me and some of you will love me. One more. Now be honest. How many of you actually feel better than you just did? 2 breaths, right? Come on. All right. So there's a lot of reasons why people take CBD. And ultimately, I believe that most of it comes back to that. Most of it comes back to the ability to relax, to breathe. And so one of the coolest things that I like to share with people about this is that generally speaking, and when I say generally speaking, this may not apply to someone using this for seizures, this may not apply to someone using it for cancer, it may not apply in every situation, but for most people, the benefit that they're getting is relaxing. Even if it's cancer. Do you know that I answer the phone? I'm going to tell you guys right now. I answer the phone all the time, the 800 number. So if you forget my number, call the number on here. You're going to get me. Okay? And so I talk to people all day long, and I get to hear a lot of feedback. And a lot of people are taking this because they have cancer, frankly. And I hear a lot of feedback. But you know what? I get to talk to them. Usually they call a week or so after they've been using it. And the feedback that I'm getting, it's not the one you read about. It's not what you're hearing about online and this and that. The feedback that I get is I'm able to talk to my family about what I'm going through. I'm able to go to the movies and laugh. I went out to eat last night for the first time since my diagnosis. These are the kind of things that when I'm talking about relaxing, relaxation, it's not just, no, it's the mind's not racing. It's the worry has diminished. It's that we can function again, properly, normally. That's balance, that's relaxation. And that's the initial benefit. I don't care what the situation is. That's the initial benefit that people are going to get when they start using and supporting the endocannabinoid system by using cannabinoids, cannabinoid support. Yeah.
You mentioned it, you can use it, you could put drops under your tongue, you can rub it on topically. Can you put it in an oil vaporizer?
No, you can, but not this particular product. As I mentioned, this one's 100% hemp. In order to vaporize these things, you have to add some fairly questionable ingredients like propylene glycol. We won't do that. So I believe very strongly that the only draw to the vaping, frankly, would be the quick absorption in the body. It's very, very fast. However, the sublingual is also very, very fast. And the oil, frankly, is a little more versatile because you can really control your dosing. You can take 1 drop, you can try 2 drops, then try 2.5 drops. You can really control your dosing, and you can use it topically as well. So it can be used, quite a bit. Yeah. Go ahead.
How often
How often?
can you use it?
Okay, so let me just jump into the dosing thing real quick. And whenever I do this, I have to say I'm not a doctor. None of this is medical advice. Luckily, there is no good dosing medical advice, in my opinion. There's just one simple, general way of looking at this, which is start with a little bit, work your way up to finding the dose that feels right for you, and then use it as needed. And the as needed can be every 15 minutes if you're getting a migraine headache until you get on top of that. The as needed could be every other day if that's when your mother-in-law comes over. It just depends. It just depends. So, but to be fully, to try to complete that answer, first you find your dose by starting with about half of the recommended dose on the bottle, which is 12 drops. So start with about 6 to maybe 10 drops in there. It's not an exact science, right? Start there, give it 10 or 15 minutes, see how you feel. And depending on why you're taking it, you just kind of have to go from there. But you work up to finding the dose that you go, oh yes, mild sense of calmness, relaxation, focus. I feel good. Whatever it is, all of a sudden I have to go to the bathroom. You don't know necessarily how you find your balance, but once you do, then you go, okay, this is a good dose for me. Once you found that dose, use it at least, I would say, once a day, at least for the initial first few weeks or so, but also throughout the day as needed, just depends on the day. And the last part about that is, as I mentioned before, generally speaking, the longer you take it, the less you need to get the same benefit. So that's in part, the as needed becomes less and less, and once the as needed becomes very infrequent, then switch it. No longer do you do the once a day, now it's just as needed. Right?
Is that because it's cumulative?
I don't really know why that is, but part of the understanding that I've read about is that, again, you start a cascade effect in which you're waking your system up. So you start to you start stimulating that system and waking it up. I believe that's part of it. I also believe that once you break that cycle and your body learns to find relaxation, once you learn to breathe again, you don't need it anymore. That's what I've been dying to say this whole time. It's true.
Yeah, Shane?
Yeah.
Question for you. I'm talking about all the benefits of
Okay.
the product.
Yeah, yeah.
Are there any adverse effects of the product?
No.
So a person on who's pregnant can have it?
Absolutely.
And have any problem?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is something, again, as not
I know no
not
one
being a
here's
medical
pregnant.
doctor, I can't give that kind of advice on a medical level, but I can tell you that based on all of the research that's out there, there's no known converse side effects. It's an incredibly safe thing. They treat infants with this.
No, I know, I've done a lot of studying.
Yeah,
so.
it's a very, very, very safe substance to work with on that level. Oh, and on that note as well, which, you know, I might get in a little bit of trouble for saying, but I'm gonna say it anyway, because a lot of people use CBD oil hoping to get off of certain medications, right? And so a lot of times people have a hard time attempting to utilize something in place of a medication because you can't use the two things together and you gotta wean off the medication. You can't just stop taking it. So there's no wiggle room there. With CBD, it's also generally considered very safe to use alongside any medication without any contraindications. So a lot of medical doctors will help people to wean off of those medications while they're using the CBD and introducing it into the body. Guys, I want to take all your questions, but I really want to give you the opportunity to try the oil tonight. And this may be the most challenging I've ever experienced with this, but I have at least one volunteer. Where's Courtney at?
She laughed.
She saw the group and she's like, you know, I said that helped.
We need to like divide it up.
Well, so yeah, I was gonna divide and conquer for sure.
Courtney, there's a bell over there, Ron, by the register, ring the bell.
Well, here's what we're gonna do. So let me give you guys the instructions. So who wants to try this? We wanna do this? Okay, good. All right, anybody not want to try it? I mean, you don't have to single you out, I was just gonna say, well, it doesn't matter. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do, guys. We're gonna give you a chance to take a dose. If you want to try using it topically too, you can do that. Just take a couple of drops on your hand. And Courtney's going to help me out. So what we're going to do is we're going to go around and we're going to ask you to do two things. We're going to ask you to put your head back and check out the awesome ceiling, and open the mouth so that we can put the drops under your tongue. You're going to want to hold it for about 30 seconds. And I'm going to warn you, it does not taste like a McDonald's milkshake. It's not flavored. Okay, my daughter is 10. She's been using this stuff since she's like 5. She can do it, you can do it. But it's not going to taste good, so just a heads up. I hate when I do this and everybody, it's so bad, warning you. So, yeah.
Is there a difference between the turquoise and the red?
Okay, so the difference is that the red, white, and blue is the Kentucky oil. And that's the one to focus on. You can simplify it, just say that. I mean, these are the ones we started with. They're good oils, nothing, but they're very expensive. Whereas the Kentucky oil is much more reasonably priced, and I personally believe it to be a better oil. So there are two strengths, the 350 milligram and the 2200. Very briefly, the 2200 really comes up when someone is using the 350 milligram bottle very rapidly, maybe within a week to 2 weeks. If you're going through that bottle like that, which might mean you're taking 20 drops every couple hours, then it makes more sense to do the 2200 milligram, in which you can take 2 or 3 drops instead of 15 or 20 and get the same benefit. It also makes sense for the small animals when we want to give them high doses, but we don't want to give them a lot of oil. It also makes sense if you want to take a really high dose. And it also makes sense simply because it's more economical. It won't go bad on you, and it's just a little more reasonable per milligram that way.
What's
So
the
that's
difference
what
in
it comes
price
up.
between the 350 and the 2200?
So the 350 is $79.99. The 2200 is $275. Although those are our website prices, they're less than that in here. I don't have exactly what 20% off tonight is going to go.
$71.99 for the 350, and then I don't remember the 2200, but something like that.
Is that with the discount tonight?
No, so
Okay,
not with the discount.
so and then an additional. So it's already less than it is online. And I want to just clarify that It's less here than online. Everybody heard that, and that's true. I promise you, it is. Yeah.
Can this be administered with a liquid or a solid?
It's
food?
best to keep it just straight, 100% hemp. If you want to chase it after 30 seconds or a minute, you can. And in a really desperate situation, occasionally someone will email me and they'll say, I love this stuff, it's doing me wonders, but I can't tolerate the taste. What do I do? In that situation, if you must, take a little bit of honey. And the way I'd suggest it is take a little honey first, put that in your mouth, then take the CBD and let it hang out in there for a little bit. Yeah.
What about the flavored CBD oils?
Well, all I'll say to that is the reason we don't flavor it is because of the benefit of keeping something 100% hemp. The benefit, I believe, is maintaining a resonant frequency, which when understanding homeopathy has to do with the ability for a product to maintain its resonant frequency is the ability for it to affect you on that level of energetics. And so I believe that in keeping it pure, it has that benefit to it. That's why we don't add any flavors.
If you have two people in one family taking that, is one bottle sufficient, or do you?
Generally, sure, absolutely, yeah. You know, and even if you have pets that could benefit, oftentimes when people get a bottle of this, it ends up being for everybody in my household. You know, my cats aren't with us anymore, but I used to have 3 cats, and as they got older and they started to exhibit signs of dementia, the CBD was absolutely like just so helpful for them and helping them to ease into that gracefully. So yeah, it can be beneficial for everybody in the same bottle, of course. Yeah, it can be used.
Are you distributing any coupons?
No coupons, but they are offering it 20% off tonight. So that's pretty cool. All right, yeah, one more.
Do you say that most doctors will work with their patients when they go into CBD and weed on?
It depends on the doctor, but my advice is that if your doctor's not willing to work with you, find another doctor. There's lots of them out there, and you know, here's a thought. What do you guys think is the greatest health risk in this country? You're close. Health insurance. Right? That's what it is. And that mindset can help you a lot. Not all that long ago, I worked at this store at Peggy's. It was a really fun experience. Peggy actually hired me before I moved to Florida. And so once I got here, I had a job. It was really awesome. And I'll never forget working in here, a gentleman came in and he was on the statin drugs for cholesterol. And he's complaining that these drugs are killing him, they're hurting his legs all day long. And I had just learned about red yeast rice. And I said, I know about this one, you know? So I said, you can take this stuff and it's very similar to the statin drugs and it won't give you those side effects and voila, you know? And I was so disappointed because he looked at the price at $26 a month, huh? Nah, my insurance won't cover that. And that was that. And that taught me the value of not having insurance. I pay my taxes and I pay the thing for not having insurance, frankly, because I wouldn't want what they have to offer half the time anyway. So anyways, it's just a little food for thought there. But work with the doctors. I found that doctors, particularly that are working with kids, particularly who are having seizures, are really open to this. Cancer doctors, not always. But when kids are involved, they're generally much more open. And it's really about education. You know, the doctors, sometimes they might be a little arrogant, they might be a little hard-headed, but God bless them, they're trying. Most of them got in it for the right reasons, and then they got tied up with student loans and insurances that wouldn't let them say certain things. You know when a doctor tells you that there's nothing they can do for you? Do you know that's code for go to a health food store? It took me years to figure that out. The insurance companies, they don't know, but that's code. That's how the doctors say it. Okay, so we got to do this.